Let's talk about jumping timelines. Now, this was a phrase that I had heard years ago, but I didn't know exactly what it meant. So I Googled it and looked for information, and I didn't find much. But interestingly, I was sitting in meditation this morning and I was doing a process for myself, and I realized, hold up, this process is going to help me jump timelines. And wait a minute, I do know how to jump timelines. And wait, I have jumped timelines in the past, and I know how to help other people to jump timelines. So I wanted to make this video so that I could share some fun stories with you and then share with you my favorite way to jump timelines so that you can do it for yourself. So jumping timelines, what is it? I am no expert, but my sense is that if one believes that all time and space is happening simultaneously and we are existing in one plane of existence or one timeline, if you will, there is a way that we can jump timelines, a little bit like a quantum leap, if you will. And so there's lots of ways to do this out there, I think, but here's the ways that I have done it in the past. So here are two fun stories, and then I'll share with you how you can do it for yourself. So first up, I was thinking back, and this happened in a way where I was reading a book called The Five Wishes by Gay Hendricks. And the premise of this book was to imagine you were on your deathbed and to look back over your life. And if you consider your life a success, what do you see? Or conversely, if you don't consider your life a success, what's missing? So I first did this, I think, back in 2007. And when I looked back over my life at that time, I saw myself becoming a mother, and that would mean that I had had a successful life. Now, at the time, that was kind of news to me. I did not know that I wanted to be a mother. But the process of this book was that if you discover something new for yourself, that you take the time to commit to the universe, to the divine, to source, to God, whatever word works best for you, something larger than you, that you have a moment of committing to that vision and then let go and see what happens. So in that moment, I made a commitment to the divine. Okay, I would like to become a mother. Well, guess what happens? So I was in a relationship at the time. I wasn't sure if it was an end-all be-all relationship or not, but I felt myself deepening into it. I kid you not, within days, this man breaks up with me. We're done. And then there had been a man that I had been dating and then breaking up and then together, not together. And all of a sudden, he comes back into my world. He had never expressed interest in getting married and having kids. And all of a sudden, literally within weeks and a month or two, I had broken up with one boyfriend, and this other man came back into my life and was ready for wife and kids, and we got married within a year or two. So that was some fast moving timeline jumping. I did not expect any of that. I didn't know that that man would come back into my life. I didn't know that I wanted to have kids, and it just set so much in motion, and I felt like I jumped a timeline. Now, the backstory is I never did end up having kids, but we did get married, and we did kind of believe that we wanted them. And so that's a whole other story. But I want you to hear that I was able to jump a timeline from one relationship I was in into this whole other relationship that set me on a different path. So story number two was, I would say a year and a half later, I did the process again of imagining I was on my deathbed, looking back over my life. If I consider it a success, what do I see? And what do I see this time is become a philanthropist. Now, not just any philanthropist, like Bill Gates level philanthropist. You have to know the backstory. I was living as a hippie healer house sitter at the time, probably living on about $600 a month. Didn't care about money, was focused on my spiritual path. And so I laughed. I was like, what? Seriously? How is that going to happen? But I did the same process. I committed to the divine. I'm like, okay, if you want me to be a philanthropist, then show me the way. Within 2 weeks, I get this random email out of the blue inviting me to a lecture series on how to build your own at-home online empire. I had no idea what this meant. This is back in 2009. But something in me said, go to this meeting. So I went to the lecture, and it was someone teaching about coaching and building an online business. And I was like, whoo, like something lit up for me. And that was my gateway drug into the coaching world. And I bought her program that night, and that woman ended up becoming my first coach 9 months later. And then lo and behold, I went from hippie healer house sitter living on nothing to 3 years later, a few years later, becoming a very, very successful fancy pants business coach. And I will say there was a moment where I was on stage where myself and my community came together to raise $25,000 to offer to the Unstoppable Foundation. And this foundation would sponsor a village in Africa for 5 years. It would build a school, there would be medical supplies, there would be school supplies, there would be clean water. It was kind of a big undertaking over a course of 5 years, and we did it. And that was 3 years later from that moment of committing to being a philanthropist. I never thought in a million years I would get there. And of course, it's not exactly Bill Gates level, let's be honest and be real there, but that was a timeline jump. I was a hippie healer. I had no idea about business, knew nothing about the coaching world, and all of a sudden I jumped timelines into this whole other path, and the rest is history. So those were moments where I realized I'd never quite put it all together, like, wait a minute, I jumped timelines in those moments. So cut to today. Now, when I work privately with my clients and I'm often supporting them into their feminine operating system and how to step into their natural design so they can use their feminine power in business rather than defaulting to doing it like men. And part of that is stepping into their deepest power and purpose. So a question that I will often ask clients and when I'm talking to someone who's considering and exploring private coaching with me is I'll ask them, on a scale of 1 to 10, how ready are you to say yes to your deepest purpose? And it's very interesting to see what answer comes up. So through that process, I was realizing that, wow, there's a way to kind of put all of these pieces together in a new way from my own experience, from my own gathering of modalities over the last 22 years of being in the healing arts and the coaching world, and also what I learned from the 5 Wishes in that book from Gay Hendricks. So that's my story, and so I wanted to share with you a way that you can do that for yourself. So I'm a big fan of using it in regard to your purpose. I was having a conversation with an old high school friend the other day, and we were talking about purpose, and I led him through this process. And that kickstarted me to sit in meditation this morning, as I mentioned. And I was then doing that process for myself and realized, wow, you can apply this to anything in life. And I felt like I developed this way to jump timelines. So here are the steps and ways for you to be able to do this for yourself. So number 1, think of something in your life that you desire, and or if there's something in your life that isn't working in the way that you might like, and tune into how you might like it to be instead. So step 1 is to really get clear on what you want. It might be your deepest purpose. It might be the love of your life. It might be perfect health. Whatever it is, find something that you desire. Then step 2 is to ask yourself this scale question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how ready am I to say yes to fill in the blank, this thing that you chose for step 1? So for instance, if it was around purpose, you could ask yourself, on a scale of 1 to 10, how ready am I to step into my deepest purpose? And see what answer bubbles up, not from your head, but from your body. And usually there's a number that kind of comes to you, and just get curious about that. It may be close to 10, it may not be close to 10. Let it be whatever it is. Step 3, if it's not at a 10, ask yourself, what would it take to get to a 10? And see what comes up. Be in a state of wonder and curiosity. Often some answers will come up of like, well, if we use our example of purpose, I'm willing to do it, but not if it means that I can't be a good parent, or not if it means I can't make a certain amount of money to take care of my survival needs, or not if it means that I have to work too much, right? Like, see what comes up. And so then step 3, I think we might be at step 4. Anyway, what's next is you want to sit with allowing yourself to create your own terms, almost as if you were negotiating with the universe and the divine and wanting to come up with like a contract of, I will do this thing if these terms are in place, and let yourself get really into it. Allow yourself to put whatever term in there that you want, because that's probably going to help you get closer to your yes. So set your terms. You might even imagine you're sitting at a conference table between you and the divine, or you and your angels, your guides, whatever it might be, and sign the contract. Like, put your terms down and imagine signing the contract. Hopefully, I think we're at step 5. So then step 5 is take a moment to offer your commitment. Like, to really say to the divine, I don't know how this is going to work. You don't have to know the how. I don't know how this is going to work, but I'm saying yes. That's what I did in those other 2 stories. I didn't know how I was going to become a mother. I didn't know how I was going to become a philanthropist. I just said yes and then let go. Now, if there are some things like, we'll add in an additional step 6, if there's a lot of things that come up in this process, like maybe some fears or some anxiety, or you're just feeling like I'm not in as expansive place as I'm doing this, you can add in a step 6 where you imagine that you gather up all the things that might be in the way, whether they're resistances or blocks or fears or anxieties or worries, whatever they might be. Imagine, you might even physicalize this with your hands. Imagine you're just going to gather them all up and then hand them up to the divine, like you're making an offering. It can be very simple. It's a ritual act of some sort of releasing the things that are in the way and handing them up. And then that's it. We could add in step 7 to say just like let go, allow, release it to the universe and see what happens. So I just did a whole bunch of them, of different topics myself this morning, so I'll let you know how it goes. But I wanted to share that with you because it's a very powerful way to work with what's happening in your life and to make that commitment with the divine. Oh, here's one more funny story. So I told you I shared that all with my an old high school friend. And so he did the process where he'd written out his terms, he imagined signing the contract, he committed to the divine, and he was driving. And literally the second he was done, a car pulls up with a Santa Claus in it. And he sent me a picture. It's a literal Santa Claus. And he was like, what do you think? Does that mean something? And I thought, how could it not? I mean, that's a confirmation in my mind. So this is some of the magic that can happen when you use this process. So enjoy this experience. Try it out for yourself. Let me know how it goes. And I can't wait to hear. Let's all jump timelines together, shall we? All right, take care.